They called her the love goddess. Every man wanted her. Every woman wanted to be her. And yet, Rita Hayworth, the most desired woman in the world, died believing she was unlovable. On screen, she was perfection. Fire-red hair, sultry eyes, a voice that could melt steel. She danced like a dream and smiled like she knew every secret. But that smile, the one that made men fall to their knees, was built by others. The Hollywood studios created Rita Hayworth. They changed her hair, her name, her skin, even her identity. They erased Margarita Cansino, the shy Spanish-American girl, and turned her into a fantasy the world could consume. But fantasies can't feel pain. And Rita did. Behind the camera, she was shy, gentle, unsure. She fell in love easily, too. Easily with men who wanted the goddess, not the woman. 5 marriages, 5 heartbreaks. Each time, she tried to find what the studio had promised her, a love as perfect as the movies. Instead, she found betrayal, control, and loneliness. She once said, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but they wake up with me, and they don't like it." In the end, the woman who taught the world how to fall in love forgot who she was. But the truth behind her beauty and her heartbreak is far darker than Hollywood ever admitted. Before she was Rita Hayworth, she was Margarita Cansino, a quiet, dark-haired girl born in 1918 to a family of Spanish and Irish dancers. Her father, Eduardo Cansino, was a talented but controlling man. Her mother, Volga Hayworth, had once dreamed of stardom but gave it up for family. From the moment Rita could walk, she was taught to dance not as play, but as discipline. At just 12 years old, she was already performing on stage with her father, dancing flamenco in smoky bars across Tijuana and California. The audiences saw glamour, but behind the lights was something far more complicated. Her father was strict, often cruel, and there were rumors that his control went far beyond choreography. Rita rarely spoke about it, but later in life, she would say only, "I was never allowed to be a child." When the Great Depression hit, her father pushed her harder. They performed anywhere that would pay: ballrooms, casinos, even nightclubs filled with soldiers. It was during one of those shows that a Fox film executive noticed her and brought her to Hollywood. But Hollywood didn't want Margarita Cansino. She was too ethnic, too dark, too real. So they began the transformation. The studio executives ordered her hairline to be painfully raised with electrolysis. Her black hair was dyed copper red. Her Spanish name was erased and replaced with Rita Hayworth, a name chosen to sound softer, whiter, more American. They told her she was beautiful only when she wasn't herself. By 21, Rita had become one of Hollywood's most alluring newcomers, a living fantasy sculpted by a system that treated women like merchandise. She was placed in publicity photos, trained to smile perfectly, taught how to move, how to sit, how to exist as a dream. And yet, beneath the shimmer, she remained quiet, almost shy. She didn't smoke or drink. She read poetry between takes. She danced not for applause, but to escape. Her breakout came in 1941 with Blood and Sand, the film that transformed her into the ultimate Hollywood symbol. Audiences fell in love with her, the red hair, the smoldering eyes, the promise of desire wrapped in satin and firelight. But the studio didn't stop there. They saw something they could sell, not a woman, but an image, the love goddess. And just like that, Rita Hayworth ceased to exist. From that moment on, she belonged to everyone but herself. By the mid-1940s, Rita Hayworth wasn't just a movie star, she was a phenomenon. Her poster, that poster, with the strap slipping off her shoulder, became one of the most famous images of World War II. Soldiers pinned her photo to their bunk walls and painted her likeness on bomber planes. She was the dream they fought to come home to. But for Rita, the dream was a cage. Her breakthrough role came in Gilda 1946, the film that defined her forever. She played a woman of fire and danger, spinning across the screen in a black satin dress, flipping her hair in a way that would become one of the most iconic gestures in cinema history. "Gilda, are you decent?" her co-star asks, and with a smile that could stop hearts, she replies, "Me?" In that single moment, Rita Hayworth became Hollywood's ultimate fantasy, seductive, untouchable, unforgettable. But the world never realized that Gilda was a performance she could never escape. Behind the perfection was exhaustion. The studio scheduled her life, every photo, every interview, every breath. She once worked 2 films back-to-back for 18 months with no rest. When she asked for a break, Columbia Pictures threatened to suspend her. She was their golden property, too profitable to be human. Her marriage to Orson Welles was both brilliant and doomed. They were two geniuses who saw the world differently. He, a visionary lost in ambition. She, a woman desperate to be understood. He adored her, but not in the way she needed. She said, "We were both too self-absorbed to make each other happy." After their divorce, she told a friend, "I still love Orson. I probably always will." Her second marriage was even more shocking to Prince Ali Khan, heir to one of the world's wealthiest dynasties. It was supposed to be her fairy tale ending. The Hollywood goddess turned real princess. The press called it the wedding of the century. But behind palace walls, Rita discovered what it truly meant to be owned. The prince was charming but unfaithful. The royal family saw her as a scandal, not a bride. She was forced to hide her Catholic faith and live under endless scrutiny. By the time she returned to Hollywood, everything had changed. The studio that once worshipped her now called her difficult. New stars Monroe, Kelly, Taylor had replaced her on magazine covers. She tried to revive her career, but something in her had faded. She was tired not of acting, but of pretending. In 1953, she told a journalist, "I'm tired of being painted on celluloid. I want to be real again." But in Hollywood, there was no place for reality. The woman who taught the world how to fall in love was now learning how to live without it. Her beauty had become her burden. Every man wanted the goddess, but no one stayed for the woman. By the late 1950 seconds, the headlines had changed. No longer the love goddess, they now read, "The star who can't keep a man." The truth was far sadder. Rita Hayworth didn't lose men. She lost herself trying to please them. By the 1960 seconds, the world had changed and Rita Hayworth had been left behind. The studio that once built her image now discarded her like yesterday's headline. New faces filled the screens: Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, Brigitte Bardot, each carrying a new version of the fantasy Rita had created. But Rita wasn't competing anymore. She was slipping away. Her marriages had crumbled, her fortune was mismanaged, and the one role she could never escape, the love goddess, had become her prison. She couldn't walk down a street without men calling out, "Hey, Gilda!" She hated that name. It wasn't her. She once said quietly, "Every man I knew fell in love with Gilda and woke up with me," and they were disappointed. She tried to find normalcy in her daughters, her home, her faith. But something was wrong. She began forgetting lines on set, missing cues, losing her way while driving. At first, the tabloids called it diva behavior, drunkenness, even madness. The truth was far more tragic. Rita Hayworth was one of the first public figures to suffer from Alzheimer's disease decades before the world even knew the name. Doctors didn't understand it, and the press mocked her confusion as arrogance. She would show up at studios, unsure of what film she was there to make. Sometimes, she'd sit in her dressing room for hours, staring into the mirror, unable to remember where she was. Her daughter, Yasmin Khan, later said, "My mother wasn't fading from the world was fading from her." By the 1970 seconds, Rita had retreated completely. She lived quietly in New York, surrounded by caretakers and fading photographs of the woman she used to be. Visitors said her home smelled of perfume and loneliness. She moved slowly, spoke softly, and sometimes asked, "Have we met before?" even to her oldest friends. The woman who once embodied desire, who made the world believe in passion, had forgotten what love even was. When the public learned of her illness, everything changed. The same nation that once adored her now mourned her. Her face, older, softer, still beautiful, became the human face of a disease no one yet understood. For the first time, Rita Hayworth wasn't a goddess. She was a person. She died in 1987 at the age of 68. Her final years were spent in silence, a silence more tragic than any movie ending. Because Rita Hayworth's greatest loss wasn't her fame, her beauty, or her lovers. It was herself. The world forgot her story long before she forgot the world. And that may be the cruelest irony of all. From this channel's point of view, Rita Hayworth represents one of the deepest paradoxes of Hollywood's golden age, a woman worshipped as the ultimate symbol of love, yet never truly loved for who she was. She was the face that launched fantasies, the dream painted in Technicolor. But like so many women of her time, her power was an illusion built by men who profited from her beauty and punished her for having feelings. Hollywood didn't just create Rita Hayworth, it invented her. Every inch of her red hair, her smile, her name was designed to sell desire. And when that desire faded, the industry moved on, leaving the woman behind the myth to pick up the pieces. It's easy to remember Rita as Gilda the temptress who made men weak with a single look. But the truth is, she wasn't Gilda. She was Margarita Cansino, a quiet, sensitive woman who wanted to dance, to love, to live without pretending. The more the world fell in love with her image, the more she disappeared. Her story isn't just about fame, it's about erasure. How many times can a woman reinvent herself before she vanishes entirely? Rita was forced to be what everyone else needed her to be: the lover, the wife, the muse, the goddess. But no one ever asked what she needed, and yet she endured. She gave beauty a soul. She gave fantasy emotion. Even when her memory began to fade, the world couldn't forget her, because somewhere inside every frame she ever appeared in, there was truth. When she was finally diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it shocked the public, not just because of her illness, but because it stripped away the illusion. The goddess was human, and in that moment, Rita Hayworth became something more powerful than she ever was on screen. She became real. Her decline forced Hollywood to look at what it had done, how it devoured its women, how it worshipped youth and discarded its legends. Her daughter, Yasmin Khan, turned that pain into purpose, dedicating her life to Alzheimer's research, turning Rita's tragedy into awareness, empathy, and change. That's her true legacy. Not the satin dress or the red lips, but the reminder that beauty without compassion is cruelty and fame without love is emptiness. Rita Hayworth was the love goddess who couldn't find love because the world never gave her a chance to be loved as herself. She taught us that even icons can break, that glamour fades, but dignity doesn't, and that sometimes the most beautiful faces are the ones hiding the deepest wounds. There's a scene in Gilda, the one everyone remembers. She turns her head, hair blazing red under the light, eyes half in shadow, half in fire. It's only a second, but in that single glance, Rita Hayworth became eternal. Decades later, the film still plays, the lights still flicker, and she's still there. Forever young, forever radiant, forever caught between who she was and who the world wanted her to be. They called her the love goddess, but love was never kind to her. It used her, worshipped her, and finally, forgot her. Yet somehow her presence lingers not as a fantasy, but as a whisper of truth. Because Rita's tragedy wasn't that she aged or that she faded. It's that she believed she had to be someone else to be loved. And that illusion, the one she embodied so perfectly, became her undoing. In the final years of her life, when her memory began to crumble, she no longer remembered Hollywood, or the men who made her famous, or even the woman they named Gilda. But maybe, just maybe, that was mercy. Because for the first time, Rita Hayworth was free from the roles, the scripts, the gaze, free to simply exist as herself. Some stars burn out, some fade away, but a few, the rare ones, leave light that never dies. Rita was one of them. Every time the camera flickers to life, every time her image flashes across the screen, she returns not as the goddess, but as the girl who just wanted to dance. She was beauty, yes, but also courage. And somewhere in that delicate space between the two, she found immortality. Some stories were never meant to be known. But now,